Good afternoon, and welcome to Brunch and Budget on Bonfire Radio with your host, Pamela Capalid, a certified financial planner here to take the bite out of your budget, brunchandbudget.com. I'm your sound provider, Dialect, and here's your host, Pamela Capalid.
Thank you, Dialect, and thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. We have another Dead Day Job Army interview.
Yes, bringing the Dead Day Job Army interviews back. We used to have a different intro for it, but then I figured that was throwing folks off, so we might as well just do the same thing every time and then let you know when we're interviewing people.
Yes. So if you haven't listened to interviews before, Dead Day Job Army is a brunch and budget series where we interview entrepreneurs and freelancers of color, and they come and share their stories and talk about the real. It is not easy to start your own business, and it's even harder when you feel like you have to explain it to your family every single time you see them. When you walk into an event and can count the number of people of color on your hand in a room, and when you try to ask for what you're worth but don't want to get passed over for the next person. So we ask folks to come in, leave their shiny Instagram pictures at the door, and tell us what it's like to really do the work, put in the time, and devote your life to your work. So we are super excited for our guest today, Chris Kim of Monk's Meat. Thank you so much for being here.
By the way, just to let you know, this is not a dating service for monks.
No.
It's with the A. Although, I mean, if you're getting enough inquiries on that tip, you might as well start that.
What?
Actually, never had that
you don't have monks trying to meet.
So Monk's Meat is a vegetarian butcher shop, and you have a place in Bed-Stuy. Is that correct?
We're working on a place in Bed-Stuy.
Okay, you're working on a place
opening,
in Bed-Stuy.
Sometime this year. One of the talking about getting real about trials and tribulations of starting your own business. Opening a store is definitely a trial and tribulation.
Ooh, I definitely want to ask about that because you're in a bunch of pop-up shops like all over Brooklyn.
You're opening a store in New York City, which I don't think the rest of the country understands.
That's insane. So you're at Smorgasburg in Williamsburg in Prospect Park. You're Pine Box Rock Shop, the vegan shop up in Brooklyn, and the one in Manhattan as well.
Right.
Yeah. Oh man, that's so awesome. And so, tell us a little bit more about Monk's Meats, and how did you get the idea to start it? So you're Asian American and a vegetarian, kind of a paradox, kind of an oxymoron that doesn't really happen very often. How did you get the idea, and how did you decide it was time to make it a business?
So, I've been vegetarian for 20 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And my partner has been vegan for about 20 years, actually a little bit longer. So for us, as a vegetarian and vegan, especially in this city, you spend a lot of time making your own food.
Right.
And you have to be you just become very aware of what you're eating, what goes into it.
Yeah.
And so over the years.
20 years ago, too, vegetarianism, that wasn't easy.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely, it's easier than people make it out to be.
Okay.
It's definitely easier than people make it out to be. But, 20 years ago when I started being a vegetarian, I was in my mid-20s, and I was basically just learning how to take care of myself anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I also had to add on to kind of this idea of being very conscious of what I was eating. Before I became vegetarian, I was working in the restaurant industry anyway. I was a waiter, I was a caterer, I was working in coffee shops, I was doing a bunch of different stuff in food service. But a lot of the stuff I was doing were places where I could basically eat staff meal. It was a lot of
whatever it was.
A lot of whatever it was, but it was always chicken, beef, pork, whatever. There was a lot of meat. And the year I decided to become vegetarian, I also quit working in the restaurant industry and became a bike messenger. So I was kind of consumed with consuming calories.
Right.
And with kind of trying to find a healthier lifestyle anyway, because I'd been a waiter in New York City in my mid-20s and the mid-90s. I smoked a lot, I drank a lot, I partied a lot, I ate a lot of meat. I felt like crap all the time.
Basically, living in the 90s in New York City is like living in Mad Men.
It was
a lot
close.
of smoking, a lot of drinking.
A lot of eating steaks.
You could still smoke in bars.
Wow, that's
You
right.
know,
Yeah.
You could go to clubs and
You could do that for a long time.
Yeah.
My first ever rap show was at Wetlands, and I believe my first in New York, and I believe my first rhymes were.
bet I was at that show too.
Smoking.
I was probably smoking.
It was you.
A fat blunt. So when I first became vegetarian, I basically had this like idea of like eat a lot of pasta,
right?
And like
cheese pizza.
I think I lived
bread
for
stuff.
close to a year on like a broccoli roll from the pizzeria around the corner from my house, like basically every day.
Good protein in that broccoli.
It got pretty boring pretty fast. Like I kind of like I had peppers, I had onions, I had button mushrooms, and I had broccoli, and I had pasta and rice. And I'm half Asian, so I had a lot of rice.
Yeah.
And tofu, which I kind of always grew up with. But there wasn't a lot of variety, and so I started to like, part of the great thing about being a bike messenger is I was out in the city a lot, so I started to hit up farmers markets and just kind of explore what was available. And like the method was to just go into the farmer's market and find something and talk to the person who was selling it and ask them what to do with it, and then go home and try to figure it out. So that's kind of how I started as a vegan chef, I guess. It was like just trying to feed myself. And this is after years of already working in kitchens and whatever, but this is the first time I was like actually feeding myself.
Right. Well, and they were all cooking meat.
And conscious and being like, and just vegetable centered. So I did that for a long time. I had a career as a bike messenger. I had just kind of a dead end career. Went back to school, got a JD, practiced law for a few years, and was highly unsatisfied with the legal profession. Was not a good fit for me.
Just in case y'all don't know, because everybody don't be putting that out there like that. A JD is a Juris Doctor. In case you are worried about whether you're going to disappoint your parents by not being a doctor or a lawyer, just be a lawyer and you're both.
There you go.
You're also so I was really unhappy with like being a lawyer.
Yeah. So you went from bike messenger to lawyer. How did you?
Easy transition.
Yeah, totally.
It's like you do.
Right.
Ooh, oh man! And you went into law, I guess.
So I went to law. I practiced law for almost 10 years. I started out, I was working in the music industry.
Wow, 10 years. Okay.
And then the music industry was like not as financially remunerative as some of the other fields of law. So I ended up working corporate litigation for a few years. And it was a very bad fit for my personality. I was like the guy who rode a bike to work, changed, put my dress shirt on in the elevator.
Pulled
my vegetarian homemade meal out of my bag. Had my Nalgene bottle of water on my desk. Was very health conscious. My hair was long, and I was just like constantly at odds with people who were trying to order lunch, worried about whether they were going to get car service home, where
they were eating a ton of meat and smoking and drinking.
And it was just like, and
I love that that's all associated together, because so the image you get is someone eating, since it's New York, a large pastrami with a cigar and a beer in their next hand.
And they're lawyer, of course. That's all lawyers do.
That's about how law offices are, right?
Personally, I'm not opposed to the whiskey lunch or anything. I just wasn't into eating the porterhouse steak.
Yeah.
But it was overall, that's sort of the myth. But the reality of it is, you sit at a cubicle, you sit at a workstation, you order in food. It's usually greasy delivery food.
Right.
You don't move around a lot. People are sort of just unhappy because they're not active enough. They're not eating well.
Yeah.
And they definitely don't have enough of a social life, and they don't have enough outside things going on. So. It's like an overall not a very happy environment. People are overly concerned about money and under concerned about other social issues in that environment. And so I had a lot of a lot of points where I was sort of at odds with people. So I was looking for something else.
Yeah,
so
totally.
I did a couple other things over the years when I was practicing law. But one of the thing that like ended up being sort of constant was always cooking for myself.
Yeah.
When my partner and I got together about 7 or 8 years ago, one of the things we shared was making meals together.
Oh, that's
so we
really
would actually
great.
got together to work on like sort of an entrepreneurial project. She's a fashion designer. I was like into biking, and we were like had this idea. She's into biking, and there was another guy that we were working with, and we were trying to make a clothing line around stuff that you could commute to work in and not look shabby.
Oh my God.
Because that's like a huge
Yes.
problem, and it was like a very real problem to me at that point.
Yeah. And so many bike commuters.
Yeah, totally.
Oh, man.
And so we were like kind of working on this project. We wanted to make like fashionable bike clothes, and it was like a really great thought exercise. But when we got done with the business plan, we were like, well, now what to do is find $1 million to make this happen. And no big deal. Of course, we don't know anybody with $1 million.
Yeah, who
so
wants to just be like, here. Wow. So you went through the process of actually like plotting out like what it would take to do this instead of just jumping in.
By the way, with like Under Armour and all that, does it make you feel better that you were right? No, just like
Wait,
I want to
did you
ask, like
have
for
fashionable
real.
work clothes?
Like, well, that's. I mean, it went the other way around. Is that you were remarking about this the other day when we were walking around? Is they've made bike outfits and workout outfits have become fashion.
Yeah.
So you guys really were onto something there.
In a way. I mean, I definitely was the guy who was wearing base layers under my dress clothes.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Right.
You know, back 10 years ago, 15
Yeah.
years ago. But yeah, we went. So that's actually how my partner and I met. So a mutual friend was like, "Oh, like she's a fashion designer into bikes. You and this other guy that we
met over a business plan."
And so they were like, "Oh, you know, our mutual friend was like, you guys should know each other. Like she could probably help you with your idea." And so that's how we met.
Aww.
And we met making a business plan, and we like started like, you know, you working a business plan, you're like, I'm hungry, let's make some food. Like,
you're both vegetarian.
both vegetarian.
Yep.
So that's kind of like, you know, like then it was like, all right, well, we're making food and we're like really inspired to like kick around these entrepreneurial ideas, but we're actually realizing that this one that we are working on that we're pretty like neck deep in isn't actually going to work out. And so then we were just like kind of shooting the shit, and we were like making, you know, experimenting with different things in the kitchen, and we were joking about how we should open a vegan butcher shop. Like, oh, we make this like we made this like vegan meat, and we were like, oh, this came out great. Like, we should totally sell this to people. Wouldn't it be awesome if there was like a vegan butcher shop that was kind of like, you know? And we've gotten a lot of flack over the years about the butcher shop moniker. The idea behind it is really that it's going to be a place where you, as somebody who's plant-based, is vegan or vegetarian, you could go and get your protein.
Yeah.
Get your, like, you know.
Yeah, it totally makes sense.
And have somebody who's knowledgeable about making and supplying protein, just like a butcher, like an old school butcher shop. You go in and you could get like a cut of lamb, cut of, you know, pork or whatever. You get all this stuff from the old neighborhood butcher. That was the idea. It's not that we're like think that it's like exactly equivalent in any way, or like we're like kind of, you know, we have like good friends who are butchers, and you know, it's like a very the amount of knowledge that it takes to be a butcher is really insane.
Although
really impressive.
I feel like I get what you mean. I appreciate this because I was going to ask later in the show the stupid question of like, well, how are you a butcher when you're not really killing stuff? But I feel like it was really easy for me to get in my head that if you guys were a butcher and not just a place that sold vegetarian meats or vegetables in general, that you had a certain level of expertise that was akin to a butcher.
Well, and we started with this idea. It was kind of a little bit of a lark, and like over the years, we've like just specialized more and more in making like different styles of vegan meat, to the point where it is really like, you know, we work in a shared commissary kitchen with like 15 other companies right now, and the other chefs have like, at first they're like, oh, ha, you guys make fake food. And we're like, no, we don't make fake food. We make real food. It might be quote unquote fake meat, but it's real food.
Yeah.
You know, and then they've come around because they see the work and they see what we do. They see where we start from, honestly, better vegetables than a lot of them are working with, and like better quality food to start with. You know, and then breaking it down and all the work we're putting into it, you know, and the pickles and the other things that we do that like all kind of are, you know, there's more skill and care and effort that goes into it than people like assume. They think that it's just like, oh, it's fake food, and it's not fake food at all.
Yeah, I watched one of the videos on your site, and one of the lines that really stood out to me is, we don't make fake meat, we make real food. Like, all of this stuff is food, and it's something where if you want to be a vegetarian and you want to take meat out of your life, you have found ways and you have built up an expertise in like actually providing that like macro of protein for people. Mm-hmm. It's a really critical piece of it.
And I think the fake food, because I was always a fan of the vegetarian spots. I remember I moved to the States having just cut beef and pork out of my diet and planning to go towards vegetarianism, and I was really a fan of VP2s and Red Bamboo because they had great. You know, it's a lot quicker to say fake meat or fake food.
Yeah.
But really, what I wanted was my tofu done differently.
Yeah.
I wanted tofu. I just wanted it to have some funk to it.
Right.
And they took the soy that I had, and they had some funk. And one of the options is, hey, do you want your funk to be similar to the chicken leg you ate years past? Yeah, why not? Let's try that out. But I think, you know, just the quickness of the term, it leads it to sound, you know, to the fake term, and then once it's fake meat, then it's like it's not food.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that really, like, people think it's hard to be a vegetarian. One of the things that we always get as a question, like, you'll go to a meal, you'll sit down, you'll be at a family meal or a company meal or something, and inevitably somebody notices that you're not eating meat, and they'll be like, oh, why aren't you eating meat? And you're like, well, I'm vegetarian. And they're like, oh, you're a vegetarian. How do you get your protein? And you're like the same way everybody else does. I eat it. Like,
yeah.
You know, it's not actually that hard. I mean, if you actually, and then there's always some guy who's like into like, you know, like wants to get swole and is like into bodybuilding or whatever. And he's like, you know, puts protein powders and everything and whatever, and he's like, oh, you can't, you need lean chicken, like, you know. And I've done triathlons, like I've done a marathon, like I ride bikes all the time,
yeah,
you know, like fairly healthy person and fairly active, and you know, like I'll get these guys who like are like, oh, well, that's, you can't get enough protein, like, and yeah, you totally can. Actually, you're getting way more protein than you need, and you're just fucking up your liver. Like,
yeah.
You need to
you
chill.
make it work harder.
All these powders that you're taking, you're just overloading your system anyway, because there's only so much protein that your body can process at a time. But yeah, but part of it was also the intuition that culinarily, when people sit down to a plate of food, they're accustomed to like a certain like way of presenting food.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you have your proteins are in beans and in vegetables that are presented as side dishes, then people feel like they're not getting everything.
Right, they're not getting the meal.
Right, and when you need that sort of main like sort of focal, like for people to psychologically feel like they've gotten a full meal. So that's one of the things that we feel like is really important, and like what we do.
Word.
And like another thing that we kind of came up on, which kind of like you know, is that a lot of times when people like talk about their favorite dishes, and it's like something that's like a chicken or beef or a pork or whatever, it's not even the meat that's actually what they like are really attached to. It's the flavor. So like one of the things that we make now is, you know, I'm half Korean. I grew up with bulgogi, which is like Korean barbecue.
Yes.
And it's like it's like a very distinct like marinated grilled meat flavor, but it's really the marinade that drives that. You know? And
absolutely.
so, you know, when you know, after like a few years of having been vegetarian, I was like, that was one of the things that I super missed. And so I went to my grandmother and my aunt, and I was like, yo, you got to give me this recipe. And they were like, I will just make you something. I'm like, but I don't need any meat. They're like, well, I don't understand that. Like, let me just make you some food. And I'm like, no, I want this recipe because I want to be able to make it without meat. And they thought that was really strange, and they didn't understand. My grandmother really didn't want to give me the recipe. I eventually got my aunt to give it to me. Give me
like a family secret.
Yeah.
She's like, you're going to put this without meat?
Yeah.
No,
Don't
you
let
can't
him
have it.
put leaves in that. That's not cool.
So, you know, like eventually, like that's the basis of our bulgogi sandwich that we do now, is this like recipe that I got from my grandmother and my aunt. But it was all based around like wanting to like have this flavor from my childhood, and wanting to do it with something that wasn't beef, you know. So now we do it with seitan, which is what our main product that we make, which is like a wheat-based vegan meat. But we also do it on mushrooms. And,
Bulgogi mushrooms.
Which, you'll find all over Koreatown now. Like when I started as a vegetarian, never. But now there's there's bulgogi mushrooms all over Koreatown. Like almost every place has some like shiitake, portobello, like bulgogi marinated.
All right,
mushroom.
they're catching up. Nice.
Well, I mean, makes sense as they're restaurants because they're biting.
Yeah, exactly. They're like,
there's
money in this.
I have never had a vegetarian bulgogi, but just knowing the flavors it has, I'm like, yeah, that would translate great to mushroom.
Yeah.
I'm with it.
Yeah, or seitan.
And that was like kind of a really we really wanted to bring, to vegan food, to bring something that was like, we felt like was kind of maybe missing a little bit. Like we really wanted to bring these more intense, more robust flavors. And then we also were really concerned about textures, because one of the things that happens with a lot of vegan food is it kind of looks like solid 3-dimensional food, but then when you eat it, everything's been pureed
mushed
and
together.
Right. And it's really soft. And so for us, we were always like, just because you're a vegetarian doesn't mean you don't have teeth anymore. Like you still
you don't have to just eat mush.
You still chew stuff. Like you want that mouthfeel where you really can bite into something. So that was another aspect of doing food that was always really important to us. So it's kind of, this whole thing started as a joke in our kitchen, but then we started to think about the stuff that we got out and the stuff that we were making home, and thinking about where we were in our lives. And it seemed like maybe this whole idea of doing commuter cycling clothes was a good idea, but not the one that we should do. And so we pivoted and we started making food for people. It was kind of at first it was a joke, and then it was a semi-serious joke where we were just did tastings for our friends, and people told us that we really needed to sell it to people. Yeah. And then they started sending us their friends who were vegetarian and vegan.
Wow.
And they would call us up and be like, Kelly told me that we should call you up. And we'd be like, okay, I guess we have a business now.
Isn't that a business? People always say the dumb stuff about a business is just a thing that tries to make money, and that's not a business, that's a burglar. But isn't that when you know you're a business, when you've solved a problem?
Yeah.
The first thing
you were
was a
onto
cool
something.
idea.
Right.
And maybe people could have given you money for it. Maybe you could have been rich for it and all that, but you weren't solving a problem because it wasn't really a thing. It didn't gain the kind of traction. And then you're like, oh, this is actually... People are sending it to me, so they know it's a problem.
Yeah, people are sending me their friends of their friends of their friends.
I feel like many businesses start like that.
I think the first moment where I felt like we were a real business is when I paid my first insurance bill.
Yes. That's real.
I definitely, the first customers were really really great, and they really got us amped, and we really so we were doing it on the side of our day jobs. And we were running around.
So this was a side thing
hustling.
for a while.
Yeah, we were hustling on the side. We were cooking out of our kitchen, where a lot of the quote unquote Brooklyn food revolution sort of starts out of people's kitchens. And we were kind of just figuring it out. People wanted it, and then we started to get people sending us contacts to grocery stores.
What?
And then at that point we were
without you asking for them.
Yeah,
they were just I want to buy this at
so
my
there
grocery store.
were a couple of local healthy grocery stores that contacted us because they're people were telling them to contact us, and we were like, well, that's awesome. We don't even have packaging. We don't have a label.
Right.
We have we came up with a name, but we don't even have a label yet or anything. So then we had to go back and kind of do that stuff and get that all together. And then we came back to these people months later, and we're like, all right, so now we're kind of more ready. What else do we need? And they're like, oh, well, you need this, where's your your certificate from the Ag and Life? And I was like, okay, we'll be right back. So, that was sort of we backed into it that way, where we were every time the business started to grow and people asked for something, we'd go back and do research and figure out how to get that credential or whatever. We eventually found our way into a commercial kitchen. We found our way into, our liability insurance. We found our way into our licensing, all that stuff. And it started to get kind of a little too real for a side gig.
Yep. You had to just make a decision one way or the other.
So I was like working in corporate litigation at the time.
Oh, so you were still a lawyer, doing this.
But I had moved over to like do like to work by contract. So I would work at a law firm for a case, and then I would have a week or 10 days or 6 months off, or it would just be up to me and up to like what the flow of work was and whatever.
Okay.
So I would kind of like have these windows where I would have a couple days off, and I would like slam out monk stuff. And then I would get another gig, and then we would be
like making seitan for like 24
and then
hours.
We'd be like nights and weekends again, and then we would like have a break. And I was working on these cases, and it was like after the 2008 financial crisis. And honestly, I was working in Midtown, and I was working for law firms that were representing some of the bad actors and contributed to the 2008 financial crisis. And we did a lot of work to like make sure that people didn't go to jail, that certain banking firms
should have gone to jail maybe,
and that certain banking firms like got to like profit off of getting bailed out and things like that, where I was feeling less and less good and more more out of place. And Occupy Wall Street was going on at that time, and I would have these junior partners from the firm and other people that I was working with all like come in the morning and talk about the dirty hippies and their stupid, pointless agenda. And I'd be like, actually, these guys have making a lot of sense. Like, those emails we were reading yesterday afternoon kind of like prove their point. Yeah. And not to like, disclose things that aren't supposed to be disclosed, but come on, guys, like let's be a little like intellectually frank here. People were like, no, like those dirty hippies don't know what they're talking about, make money, like this is what pays our bills. And I was like, I really can't do this anymore. So when that case ended, I was like kind of like complaining, and my partner was like, well, we're kind of getting to the point where one of us has to go full time, and you hate your job, and your job is like less certain, and my job has health insurance, and my job has a 401k, and it's less onerous to me than your job is to you, so maybe you should go full time.
Wow. Yeah.
And so then kind of like that was like where we launched the business from. It's just
when did you officially go full time? What year? Was that 2008?
2012.
2012.
It's 2012. So we started doing it in 2000. I think the winter of 2010-11 is when we first started doing it, and we did it for a year, nights and weekends and on the side. And then we started to got more serious. We started when we first started, we went into grocery stores. We started selling packaged stuff in grocery stores, and we started doing pop-up markets as like a marketing thing, like a way to get our name out there and to like kind of familiarize people with our product. And then we were doing that for a while, and we realized that the cash flow from doing pop-up markets was pretty good, and that's how we ended up like applying to Smorgasburg, because we wanted to grow our name. But then we very quickly realized that like that is its own gig, and so we started doing Smorgasburg, and like that turned into like half of our business, more than half of our business.
That's how good, more than the grocery stores.
Yeah, and we eventually we don't actually do grocery store right now.
Okay.
We laid off of the grocery store because you want to talk about trials and tribulations of business and stuff. We were for a long time the bulk and the steadiest bulk of our business volume wise was grocery stores. Yeah. But then and we were just starting to do some wholesale, and we're doing these markets, and we thought the markets was like sort of a promotional thing until we started to realize the cash flow was really good on those. And every day, every week, like whatever, we just kept cash. And then we were like running around like crazy trying to manage all of these different businesses. And I sat down with a friend of mine who's also an entrepreneur, and he was like, you're going crazy. You really need to like look at all of your business lines and actually take a hard look at not just what brings in the most money, but what's making you money. Like look at the expenses, look at the time, look at the headaches, and take that into account, and then cut something. Cut your least profitable thing, because you have too many lines going at one time. So then I actually did that. Like had a day where I was just like losing my mind. And, like,
spreadsheets, numbers, yeah.
Well, actually, where I was losing my mind, running around trying to fulfill all of these orders and prepare all this stuff and like be ready for everything. And then I was like, this is, this is not working. Like,
yeah. Something has to give. Totally.
So I sat down and I did the numbers, and I realized that we grew the wholesale business 35% over the winter, and our expenses grew 38%. So we were actually making more money and losing more money. And so I was like, this is not working. Like there's so much extra labor with packaging and so much extra labor with promotion for a grocery store that the actual even though the volume is going up, it's not actually making us more money. So we realized that even though wholesale was like a lower margin business, and we thought we were making less per pound off of that business, it was so much easier that the overhead was so much less that really made that a much more valuable business. And so we started pushing in that direction more. And it's like little lessons. Like basically every lesson that we've learned the hard way.
Yeah. I feel like I feel like that's honestly the only way to go. No one could have told you until you looked at the numbers and did it and had that crazy day that you needed to take a look and say, oh wait, yes, this has grown revenue wise, but expense wise it's exceeded the revenue that it's grown. So it's not going to be worth it in the long run. Unless you focus on that and figure out how to actually optimize it.
And so then we realized we have to change the way we go out about certain business lines. You know, we definitely learned that you have to account for more of those overhead variables, those costs. You have to capture them more in your financial when you're looking at your finances. You have to capture more of those things. Yeah. And be a little bit more you would throw, I would be like, oh, well, I just spent this money here, that money there, and not until we did our taxes at the end of the year and I pulled all these receipts. They're like, oh, where did this come from? And this isn't in the spreadsheet, and this isn't in the spreadsheet, but it's in our taxes at the end of the year. And then realizing that the profit margin wasn't as good.
Wow.
As we thought it was for a while.
Yeah, and that's the difference, I think, between when we have our hypothetical businesses where everything is about, oh, let's get all the money that we can now, and when you really get into something that's going to need to be sustainable is the nuts and bolts of it. And I love when you're talking about how the thing that was easier was the more profitable thing, really. Because oftentimes I think that our heads are flown the other way. We're going to take a quick break and get into a little bit of some music in. I got a cat from New York, New York. His name is Boss Carrot.
Wow, yes.
Yeah, his name is Boss Carrot, and the song is called Deadly Cycle, featuring Monroe, and we'll catch you in a minute. Brunch Budget, Bonfire Radio.
To my mother, I will build with my brothers, cause I hate to see my niggas fall victims to the gutter. Another mother suffer cause we destroying each other. Yeah, they still segregate. Code name Section 8. Crack on that kitchen plate, serving your community just to see a better day. Stuck in the same place, money can't take pain away. With these words I pave away, black power and unity. You should call me Huey P. I keep my peace by blowing trees. I keep a chick that blow the D. I'm a nut who need a nut. I'ma fuck shit up, cause these cops is corrupt. Quick to lock a nigga up. They like to see us up in cuffs. Frank Lucas wasn't enough, that's how we came came here. It's still the same here. Life just ain't fair. It's every man for themselves, we really lynched here. Nothing like Nas here, cause I'm not God's son, but I am a godson. And I often offend niggas with my offense. Lame nigga, be cautious before it turn to caution. I don't really want another nigga in the coffin. I just work hard so a nigga can be loft in. Make my mama proud, she ain't get that abortion. I'm at 16, so I'm here for a reason.
Children dying, mothers crying, drug dealing, plus I gotta work a 9 to 5, and I just wanna breathe. The government ain't helping me. This life of poverty's a deadly cycle. Every night my grandma holds a Bible. No fear in the shadow of death. No, he's watching my back and I'm watching my steps. So take me away from the pain, cause I can't take this stress anymore. Wish I could go to a place with peace and harmony. Take me away. Take me far away from here. I will run with you. Don't be afraid. Navigate and I will steer us to the sun. We will run. We will run. We will run. Don't be afraid.
Welcome back, Brunch and Budget, Bonfire Radio. That was Boss Carrot out of Brooklyn, New York, with the Deadly Cycle featuring Monroe. Boss Carrot is no joke; he gets it in. And we were just having a lot of good conversations going on behind things. So
yeah.
I want to bring all that to light. I mean, we were going to get back to you anyway, eventually.
Yeah, but Chris, you were saying when you were looking at the financials that it was hard to like decide to cut that off, that side of the business.
Yeah, I mean, you get really invested in the project. Like as an entrepreneur, as an owner, you know, you have these ideas and you're super inspired by them, and you put so much effort into them. And I mean, I can't even tell you how much time and how many arguments we had over like little details of packaging, whether there should be an underline or a dot or like a what, you know, and then to like do that for weeks and weeks and weeks and like produce this packaging and then get it out there and spend 2 years building this business, and then to make the decision to pull the plug on it is super hard, because you just like, it's your baby. You don't want to like,
right, that's what you
cut your
started
baby
with.
off at its knees, but sometimes you have to like,
Sometimes you have to cut children's knees off, is what the vegetarian restaurant is what we're telling us.
You need to know when to triage.
Yeah.
This is how you make the good vegetable sauce. It's from baby knees.
There you go. Yeah, those babies were vegetarians, so.
Grass-fed baby knees.
So, did looking at the numbers make it easier for you to make that decision?
I mean, we had to. You get to a point where you have to make that decision, because you look at whether or not the entire project is going to thrive, or you're going to stay attached to an aspect of the project.
Yeah,
and you have to pull back and look at the bigger picture, and see where you have to prune. This is like pruning a bush or a tree or whatever, so that the whole thing can thrive, and you have to know when to cut it off. We're like about to like kind of go back into the retail, but with like a smarter sort of a smarter way of doing it. So we have we have different product that we're working on, different packaging, like longer shelf life, and like just different way of doing it, but we also realized from doing it that the retail game is kind of like a deep pocket game, and so like to be in it,
like needing that $1 million.
Yeah, you really do. Just like with the clothing project with the fashion project that we were thinking about, to really do retail and go like regional and nationwide, to be in Whole Foods all over the place, you need really a lot deeper pockets than we have. So like we at one point we're talking with a regional chain grocery store, and they had like 14 stores, and they were like, well, could you deliver a pallet of your
How
product?
much is a pallet?
And we were like, well, how much is a pallet? That was our question. We were like, sure. How much is that? And we were like, oh, actually, just kidding. Like, there's no way we
There's
can
no way
handle
you
that.
can make
We
that.
can't even get up on that. We can't even, we don't have
Wow.
enough money to even get up
To,
on
like,
the raw
yeah.
ingredients to lead that.
Mm.
You know, so we were like, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, totally. So you're like, okay, that's out. Going
Right.
that direction and growing in that direction would require like a big infusion of cash, involving an investor, giving
And-
up a piece of your business. Yeah.
And we couldn't do it. We couldn't do
Yeah.
it on the timeline that they wanted us to
Yeah.
do it on either, you know. So it was like
Whew.
that was just a part of the decision to be like, okay, well, we can't do this. So we're gonna do this a little bit more bespoke and a little bit more, you know, like specialty stuff for smaller places, and you know, work on having this like a little bit more of a niche product because
Yeah.
you know, what we do, it's all handcrafted, it's all made, you know, by there's only 3 people in my kitchen.
Oh,
You know,
what?
out of
really?
all of our employees, we only have 3 people in the kitchen.
Wow.
And then we have part-time employees who help us with markets and with other stuff.
Yeah.
But there's you know, it's a small crew that makes everything. you
Wow.
know? And that's how one of the ways that we ensure that there's like, you know, I'm very if you ask my employees, they'll tell you I'm like a little neurotic about it, but I'm very like attached to things being done the way I want them done.
Right.
And
You have a vision.
So I've definitely run through quite a few people in my kitchen and like not been happy with them. I put up with them because I needed help or whatever. But you know, it's taken a lot for me to find people that I'm actually genuinely happy with.
Wow. So you found
And-
yourself being a manager all of a sudden.
Again, yeah.
Again.
Well, and that's, you know, like I got into this. I didn't get into this to do paperwork and to push, you know, to push papers around and do permits and pay for insurance and like,
Yeah.
you know, manage schedules and like to run spreadsheets. And you know, sometimes I have these moments where I'm like, man, I could have just stayed in a law office and like looked at spreadsheets all day. Like,
But you also didn't get into this to not do paperwork. It's not like you left the law office because the big problem was the spreadsheets.
oh yeah, absolutely.
You know, so I mean,
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with the paperwork. I just wanted to do more than just paperwork.
Yeah,
you know? And
totally.
So that's definitely for sure.
I think that's a thing that a lot of entrepreneurs really got to think about, because I'm definitely that cat. I hate doing paperwork. I hate doing all of the legwork types of things. And then I'm like, oh, I'm not going to work for these folks. I'm going to work for myself. Oh, right. Still got to do all that.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, admin still needs to
Actually,
happen.
got to do more of it.
Yeah. Yep.
And there's nobody else to pass the buck to.
Right. They're all making
Or
your
even
save
yell
hand
at
for
you about
yeah.
it.
Yeah, exactly. You have to yell
Well,
at yourself.
I have a partner, so she yells at me.
Have
you go.
partners.
Part of her
Yo,
job.
because otherwise, no one will care that your bio is 9 years old.
Right.
Yeah.
Or that your financials are not up to date this month. You know, it's just you. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Wow. Okay. So the other thing that we were talking about during the break that I thought was really interesting is the food business. I feel like is tough because, you know, food goes bad. It's not like something you can keep on a shelf and like wait until it sells. It's a question of like, how much do you buy today? How much do you buy tomorrow? You know, how do you balance all of that?
Especially with your like how you feel about things and all that.
Yeah.
I'm very like even at home, like I have ice cubes in my freezer and ice cream. Like I don't freeze food.
Oh.
I
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
right. Like only ice cubes. And
Yeah,
ice
yeah.
cream.
that's
I was
all
like,
we have.
I was
is
like,
just,
cool. That makes sense.
Just
Yeah.
ice cube. There's no frozen.
No frozen vegetables.
No frozen vegetables. No.
Yeah, no
there's
prepackaged,
Nothing
like, food.
prepackaged.
Wow.
Nothing. There's not even like that much stuff that we made that we put in the freezer to hold on to. Like I'm just like really think that like the best food is fresh food, and that like, you know, like you should make what you need and eat it before it runs out. It's kind of always been my sort of philosophy about food, and it's translated into our business really hard for like the first probably. I mean, we've been in business about 5 years now, and
Yeah.
probably the first 4 years we ran a like almost zero waste, like 1% waste. We almost never threw anything out. We were like super
impressive.
Wow.
super intense about making sure that we rotated stock and sold everything and
Yeah.
found ways to use stuff. and like, you know, kick down our product that was like, you know, like if it didn't have enough lifespan to go to the grocery store, we figure out a way to use it right away, which is another way we started to use the smorgasbord market. Was like, all right, we have like produced, you know, 100 pounds of seitan this week, and we sold 80. We have 20 extra pounds of seitan that we're not going to sell this week. Rather than, even though it has a 30-day shelf life, let's figure out a way to sell it this weekend, and so we can start over next week and keep it fresh.
Wow.
So that's been like a huge drive and for us. And you know, the other side of it though is, you know, like when we're at the market on the weekends, if we sell out quite often, and you know, almost, since we only really have Saturday and Sunday markets that we do fresh food at. I basically, my goal is to sell out by like, we're open until 6 on Sunday, but my goal is to sell out of everything we made for the week between 5 and 6 o'clock on Sunday.
Right.
You know, and if we can do that, then I've like perfectly managed my like production to sales, and like I'm like super happy. If we sell out before 4 o'clock, if we sell out at 3:30 or something, then I'm really, really mad actually, because then I know I left money on the table. Like there's customers who wanted our stuff, who couldn't get it. There's, you know, like there was like value that we could have reaped that we didn't, and so like, you know, we lost money basically. Even though we sold everything, we lost money.
Has that quandary led you to some weird ideas, maybe that worked out, maybe that didn't work out, for some solutions? Like if you find yourself, it's 5:30 and stocks are looking pretty full, did you like throw a food party or you know, start a food fight with the guys across from you? or if you would already run out of everything, did you be like, I'll go and get it from, like, I'll be your own Postmate? I don't know.
We you know, and that's, you know, part of the entrepreneur thing is like, you know, especially early on, even when we didn't have a lot of resources, I would like run to the grocery store. We'd like try to like stay up so we could stay open and keep going. And you know, it's over the years, I've gotten to the point where I have a little less enthusiasm for that. And but also I've gotten better at managing it, like learning lessons the hard way. You know, like I've managed to be able to make sure that we have product that lasts to the end of the day.
So what kinds of things, like, even just on a personal side, because it sounds like that's how you kind of manage your personal thing. I feel like that's a lot of what people struggle with in general in terms of, like, keeping food fresh and keeping food in the house is, like, I don't even know how to begin to plan for that. Are there any, like, quick tips that you can give people in terms of, like, how do you just start thinking about food in terms of, like, I want to eat this all in a week, so this is what I need to start thinking about?
Make soup.
Word. Because soup lasts for a longer time.
Well, that's you always have like a little too much of anything. Like make it and then make soup.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
But
like learn how to make good soup. Yeah.
You know, that's like one of the things that I got really good at making is pesto. Right, and we make pesto out of all kinds of different greens, not just basil.
Like what?
Like arugula.
Arugula pesto?
Yeah, arugula pesto. We make pesto out of all kinds of like the beet greens, dandelion greens, like whatever we have around, and that's like kind of like has like a little flavor. We figured out different, like, you know, tinkered with the pesto, the basic pesto formula of greens, oil. We don't use cheese in ours. We use nutritional yeast. But, you know, like a nut, a cheese, a cheesy substance.
Yes.
You know, the greens, some oil, salt, pepper. And some, you know, like we've used different kinds of nuts with different greens, but it's a way when the greens are like, okay, we had these greens, but like we only used half the bunch. What do we do with the other half of the bunch? Make pesto. That always is a way to stretch it out. To like use it up. I mean, there's just different, like, it's hard to be creative. I think that like a lot of people get these CSA boxes.
Oh my God, yeah, we got so much chard.
The CSA box is like, yeah, exactly.
So much chard and so many carrots.
People are like, what do I do with all this stuff? And you're like, I gotta go to I need a carrot cookbook because I need like to figure out 15 different ways in a week to like make, or like celeriac. Like people get the like celeriac.
We could get our last artist, Boss Carrot. I'm sure he knows what to do.
Yeah, right.
Probably you boil them, son. You make a stew.
Yeah, make a stew. Make mash.
You can mash any
make
vegetable.
mash anything.
It was a hit show.
Generally, you can mash anything and then deep fry it, and it's probably good.
That's true.
I really appreciate.
And then add cheese to
once
it.
again, the guy who runs a vegetarian restaurant saying you can mash anything and fry it, and it tastes good.
Yes.
This actually might be a good tactic to get the non-vegetarian people to try it. They'd be like, wait, so it's not dead, but it's mashed and fried? Close
I'll
enough.
eat it.
Right. Pam's a big meatitarian.
From a healthy like perspective, like I have certain obviously I have certain ethical issues with eating meat, and so I don't eat meat.
Mm-hmm.
But nutritionally, I think that like you have to have a balance in your diet. So like if you're gonna go vegan and you're gonna be like ethical and healthy and whatever, you have to let yourself have something fried every once in a while. You have to
Totally
let
agree.
yourself have like some ice cream every once in a while, or something sweet or whatever. You can't treat eating like punitively, I guess.
Yeah.
You got
to still enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah, food
Yeah.
is one of the like fundamental pleasures in life.
Yeah.
And so if you treat it as privation, then you're not going to be successful with your diet.
Yes.
Totally.
So,
yeah.
it's really important. I mean, and also, just fundamentally, I think it's really important to be more balanced about diet. I think that, my goal, one of the things that when we started this company, we really did view this as a way to be an activist. Like I said, I was working in an office.
Yeah.
And I was working with all these people who were just down on liberal, sort of activism.
Yeah.
They were just toe the line, conventional people, and I would come home and bitch and complain about them all the time, and my partner was like, hey, you should just shut up and do something. So, and then I would get in these arguments with people, and then you get these rabid vegan arguments, and you're like, I'm not really that guy. I really don't want to be that guy.
That's a funny term, rabid vegan.
Vegans.
Yeah.
If you do decide you want to start doing music,
That's the band name.
But you don't want to be that guy. You don't want to be preaching
Yeah.
at people all the time about food. And so for me, this was a way to be an activist without preaching to people, to be providing people an option rather than telling them they shouldn't do something and giving them some other alternative.
By the way,
I love that.
for folks who are listening, that is the way to be an activist. And the most amazing thing about what you were saying is it's what people tell activist type folks all the time, or people who care about stuff. Oh, what you doing talking all this stuff? Go do it. We know as humans we can't do all the things. We're not even aware of all the things that we would care about or possibly do care about. If you actually care about making a change, making a difference, you find that point of tendency where your abilities line up with what you care about, and you do what you can. I think sometimes people think what you're doing is akin to activism, or is activism friendly.
Yeah,
or
tangential.
Yeah, you're sort of doing something. But what you do is full out activism with what you do, and the idea of it is if all of us do the stuff we give a fuck about, then we all give a fuck together, and then it's just a big orgy of caring.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, so we're a business, so we obviously have to make money.
Yeah.
But we are not a business to make money.
And most businesses shouldn't be.
We have definitely have as our goal, our primary goal is to make really good food for people to eat and have happy customers. And our secondary goal is to provide a healthy, nutritious alternative and to give people a path to healthy eating. And our third goal is to have happy employees, and our fourth goal is to make money. So the money is a way for us to empower our other goals. Yeah. But it's not our main, by far are not our main. If I wanted to make money in food, I would not make vegan food. It's a good moment to make vegan food, it's trending and it's been really a positive thing, and there's a lot more people interested in it. Our business is really growing a lot. But honestly, if I wanted to make money in food, I would go to the restaurant depot. I would buy the cheapest beef I could possibly find and the cheapest potatoes I could possibly find. And I would fry them and I would sell them for like not very much money with a lot of cheese on them. Like that's like what people would buy. You make money, you make
no matter
profit
what.
margin.
Yeah.
That's not why we make food. And so, and that we're not here just to make money. It's like the money is like a means to accomplish it.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I mean, money is if money is your end goal, you better have a money bin to swim in.
Yeah, for real.
And
You're doing it wrong.
Physicists have shown us that that's not actually a good thing to
Oh my
swim in
God.
money. So no, thank you so much for saying that because if your
Yes.
plan is to make money,
So
then you need to
refreshing.
have it to
Yeah.
use for something.
Yeah.
And the
Money
idea
is
of that,
it's not a thing. Money can never be the end goal.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're using it as a tool to like be an activist, like that's how you're creating value. That's how you're spreading what you believe. It's man.
This
I
is
think
how you have a business, and
Yeah.
we gotta go.
we gotta go. That was just a great fucking place to end, dude. Seriously.
I mean, mind you,
listen to
I
that
feel
part
like,
again, y'all, because that is what a business is supposed to sound like, feel like, and look like.
Yeah, I mean,
Period.
Yeah, that's that. We're gonna finish off with a little more music for you. We're gonna go. Yeah, we're gonna go to Argentina. Yeah, I don't know if you knew that. Where they have vegetables there too. This song is called Vegetariano, and it's by where's the group's name? Oh, Cuerpo Manda with Vegetariano, and we'll check you next week. Brunch Budget, Bonfire Radio. Peace.
Soy vegetariano y me caben los vegetales. Te lo digo de frente, bruto. Esa parte de la grasa del asado me la banco siendo vegetariano. Oye lo que digo, trata de sacar la grasa a tus oídos. No te metas eso que es podrido. Queda mucho tiempo cerca de tu ombligo. Se descompone a toda velocidad, contaminando a tu largo intestino. No está preparado para tanta densidad. Los la pusiste como si fueras inmortal. Alguien inmortal. Soy vegetariano y me caben los vegetales. Te lo digo de frente, bruto. Esa parte de la grasa del asado y me la banco siendo vegetariano. Bebe mucha agua, limpia las arterias que están taponadas. Al alcance está todo lo que necesitas. No lo intoxiques con químicas bebidas. Eso te va a agravar toda la digestión. No tienes dientes ni garra de predador. Tu cuerpo es diseñado para frutas y hortalizas. El cuerpo manda, te asegura que eres solo un cazador del refrigerador. Soy vegetariano y me caben los vegetales. Te lo digo de frente, bruto. Esa parte de la casa del asado y me la banco siendo vegetariano. ojitos. No te metas eso, que es podrido. Deja mucho tiempo cerca de tu ombligo. Se descompone a toda velocidad, contaminando a tu largo intestino. No está preparado para tanta densidad. No te abuses de él como si fueras inmortal. Alguien inmortal. Soy vegetariano y me caben los vegetales. Te lo digo de frente, bro. He zafado de la grasa del asado y me la banco. Siendo vegetariano